Christian, you know who I'd like to book? That Tiger Mom, David Wu, the representative
from Oregon.
Yeah, he's out. I don't know. He's got some book, Tiger Mom or something. See what this is about. We'll talk to another rep in the interim. Joining us now is Republican Congressman of Michigan, Thaddeus McCotter. His new book is Seize Freedom! American Truths and Renewal in a chaotic age, culture of enterprise. Hey, Thaddeus, what's up?
Hey, Dennis, I see Representative Wu's not the only one feeling catty today.
Well, you must bump into Dave on the floor. Sounds like a solid citizen.
Nice guy.
I'm sure he is. What's his plushy character's name?
I don't know. We haven't really discussed that.
All right.
And I'm a Detroit Tigers fan, so
great.
Partial.
Just go up behind Wu today and go, great. See if he freaks out. All right. I'm looking at the two different fires that we've had to quell over there. It seems like Mubarak, although the president hedged a little, Mubarak was kind of given the message a little earlier on that it was time to go. It seemed like we were a little more reserved with Gaddafi. Are we afraid of him going on, just being full-bore nuts? Or, I don't know, you tell me how the White House is playing this, because it's been so, it's such a miasma, I can't follow it, quite frankly.
Well, I think there is confusion. Because when you start talking about, you talk about Egypt, you talk about Libya, you don't hear much talk about the Green Revolution continuing in Iran, which, if there's one place that a dictatorial regime antithetical to the interests of its people in the United States exists, it's there. And so the opportunity for constructive change and real freedom advancing is there, and yet we hear very little about that. When you compare Egypt, as you have to look at every country individually, and you have to look at the potential for a revolution against an autocrat like Mubarak being usurped, as the Iranian Revolution was in 1979, being usurped by a more radical organized band that then winds up being a change for the worse, both for the Egyptian people and for the United States. And we've seen disturbing signs that that's already occurring, with the Coptic Christians being very concerned and leaving the Constitutional Committee because they're afraid that the army is sidling up to the Islamists, and when you've seen the permission for the Iranian warships to go through the Suez Canal. When you look at Libya, clearly there's not much of a worse regime that can take the place of Mr. Gaddafi. And I think the United States there would be appropriate in being very forceful in supporting the regime change and finding ways with our partners in Europe and elsewhere to help facilitate a transition to a democracy and help to facilitate Mr. Gaddafi's exit into the ash can of history.
Yeah, Gaddafi just seems like a no-brainer. It's a sitter at the net. You could whack him in a second or get behind whacking him, and nobody could really bridle. I think he's like Capone on the Alcatraz. I think he's brain syphilitic. But I was saddened. The one green movement, naturally, that I happen to believe in the world, and this is the one we won't blow on the ember, and over in Iran, I watched those kids charging the parapets, getting their brains beat in, and I thought, where's our guy? What do you think when stuff first comes across his desk? Is it shot through the political prism, or is it shot through the how do I help the world prism? I don't know anymore, quite frankly.
I don't know, because it's a relatively incoherent policy. Now, you could have a policy that looks at each country individually, like I've tried to lay out, much like Burke viewed America and the French revolutions differently. But what we're seeing is an odd emphasis on the Egyptian, but that was not then followed with Gaddafi. It's very incoherent to me, and it's very disconcerting. Now, the one bright spot has been with the nascent Jasmine Revolution in communist China, where they are trying to use the internet to bring pressure to bear on that regime. And you've seen Secretary Clinton come out in support of internet freedom, which is the means by which the Jasmine Revolution, as well as the others, are trying to topple these dictators.
We're talking to Thaddeus McCotter. I'm going to flip it over to the book now. He has a new book, Seize Freedom. By the way, there's a website with that, seizefreedombook.com, seizefreedombook.com. The book is Seize Freedom. Break it down for the listeners, Thaddeus.
Well, I tried to bring some sense of what the challenges that we're facing. We all know we live in a very chaotic time. All we have to do is turn on the news to see that. And so what I wanted to do was go back to the roots of ideology, which actually exacerbates chaos, does not ameliorate it, walk up through the challenges the greatest generation faced, the parallels between those and the ones that we're facing now, and show how that the liberty of the American people has always been the foundation by which we've transcended these challenges, and to make sense in some proposals today for how to expand it here at home and abroad. And that is a very quick synopsis of the book. Unlike Katie Couric, I made the mistake of writing it myself, so people who don't like it, I can't blame a ghostwriter.
Listen, I see this as an inevitability that there's going to be a major conflagration between the West and the East, the right and the wrong, whatever you want to call it. But there's some bad guys over there who live to destroy us, and I see no way around it. They don't seem to react. I'm always taken back to Thomas Friedman's book From Beirut to Jerusalem, the Hamas Rules, that they don't quite get inference over there. At some point, you got to wake up and the city's no longer there for them to get the point. And oddly enough, they react to strength, as bin Laden hinted when he said we're the weak horse. We need to be the strong horse there, and I think we should get this on, like Bolton says, earlier than later, because it's coming. It's inevitable, it seems.
I think that to a large extent that is, and the concern is, depending on the nature of the democratic and economic institutions, especially at the local level within these countries, is to make sure that they aren't having their revolution stolen from them. Again, the '79 revolution. You can go back to the French Revolution with Robespierre and Danton stealing a movement and turning it into a butcher shop. You can go to the Bolsheviks, whose motto was peace, land, and bread. It wasn't show trials, shootings in Siberia. And you have to make sure that you, as the West, as the United States, can help be a constructive force, not only in building those institutions preemptively at the local level, but helping to channel constructive change. Because the one thing that we keep missing in the calls for democracy is also the important calls that there be a understanding of a constitutional basis for government, so that democracy alone can't lead to 50+1 of the people passing laws that can then kill 49.9%.
Yeah, I guess it's a little easy to sit on a radio show and play the cool guy and say we have to go all in, but you don't really want to do that till the moment. I guess we'll have to follow Netanyahu's lead. He certainly in the neighborhood knows when it's time to go. I hope we back his play. I'm not sure at most points in history I would have said that would be a guarantee. I'm not sure that's the case anymore, but you're right. I shouldn't be Matt Dillon over here in Gunsmoke, but it just seems to me inevitable that somewhere we're going to lock antlers with these nuts.
Well, you're seeing the breakdown of what constituted stability within the Middle East, within North Africa over roughly the past 30 to 40 years, and it's going to be very tumultuous. It's very akin to the revolutions that occurred in Europe in 1848, where at least 4 countries were swept with calls for a more Republican form of government. And you have to be very careful and look at the unique situations in each country, because if you care about Egyptians, if you care about Libyans, if you care about Iranians or Chinese, what you do not want is to have a regime that was bad replaced with a regime that is worse.
Mm-hmm. We're talking to Representative Thaddeus McCotter of Michigan, and he has a new book out, Seize Freedom. There's a website for it, seizefreedombook.com. Let's move it from the Mideast to the Midwest here for a second. What am I think I'm seeing I think the official oppressed minority in this country is now the majority, and I think I'm seeing some sort of it's the cyclotron. I think I think it's Enrico Fermi out there in Wisconsin, and it's been sped up and split, and I'm wondering if I'm going to see it just go out and out from here. But things that can't be supported anymore won't be supported, and I don't know if it leads to a civil war, but certainly a nasty divorce settlement seems to be coming in this country.
Well, I think that's part of what we're seeing is when we talk about how the country evolved during the age of industrialization. You had companies, think GM in the 50s or 60s, becoming very top-down, very bureaucratic, very centralized. And you saw government, think FDR, think LBJ, became very top-down, very centralized, very bureaucratic to match it. What we've seen in the age of globalization within the communication revolution is we have entered a consumer-driven economy. This is where people around the world can buy goods or services around the world, can communicate around the world, and as we've seen in many countries can actually form an effective opposition to the rule that they do not like. What the federal government continues to do is try to be top-down, centralized, bureaucratic. You think stimulus, think Obamacare. And when you get down to the state level, you have existing models of governance whereby they used to have rich tax bases where they could tax those large vertical corporations. Those are gone now. So what you're seeing is the inevitability of a transition to what I believe will be a citizen-driven government. The question is whether it's done responsibly, one that fosters self-government and independence and the dignity of self-reliance, or continues to try to foster centralized in Washington, a government that makes your decisions for you, increases governmental dependence. That is no longer sustainable anymore in Wisconsin than it is in Greece.
Oh, even the poster boy for that side of the aisle, though, FDR, I don't think he believed in the concept of public sector unions, did he?
Well, what you're seeing, Dennis, is the fact that the Democratic Party is currently constituted. Is the one thing that links them all is redistribution, and what they need in a highly bureaucratic state. Now, they may argue over certain aspects of it, but generally what they have to do is they have to redistribute wealth. Now, when they redistribute wealth through governmental employee unions that can spend what they take as opposed to private sector unions which can only spend what they make,
Yes.
what you're looking at is this is a base of pillar of their power, and how they try to get elected to public office is by using taxpayer money, redistributing it through the public sector unions, which then turns around and comes into support for Democrats that will continue to do the same thing. So it's not only the potential implosion of the current highly centralized structure based out of Washington that we see. The Democratic Party also views it as a threat to its ability to get elected. I think that's why you're seeing such ardent opposition to many of the changes that are being proposed throughout the country, not simply Wisconsin.
No, I think this is a fight for their very survival on that side of it. And I would say this, it's getting convoluted when I've already heard the president say that he wants to handpick the redistributionists, and he'd like that to be a union position, redistributionists.
Yeah, he understands this. Look, Victor David Hansen had a great article that's out there about what do you expect a community organizer to do.
This is what he does.
What he does.
It's like the joke about the creature going across the river on the tiger's back, and then the tiger turns and eats him. He goes, "What's that about?" Well, that's what tigers do, and this is what community organizers do. You're right.
Was the tiger also a member of Congress?
Yes, he is, and you'll go see Wu right now. He's in the cloakroom. He'll be the one in the Tiger Wood driver cover over in the corner. All right, T-Mac, go get him, baby. Thaddeus McCotter, seizefreedombook.com. Give it a tumble, and that is a smart cookie right there.